It's Mark and Pete.
Hello and welcome to the show, More Colourful Conversations with Mark and Pete. This is the show dedicated to religion, politics and business. Each week, Clergyman Pete and Businessman Mark take on a topical subject. Well, this week, why do you lie? Yes, listeners, is it that we lie perpetually to get our own way? Are we trying to do it simply because others are doing it and we have to battle with lies upon lies? Well, many psychologists believe that in many ways it's to do with trying to protect our own self-esteem. We don't want to be seen as fools. Well, speaking of which, I know a man who sort of tells the truth, I think, and that's Clergyman Pete. So, Pete, have you ever told a lie?
Well, Businessman Mark, I always tempted, of course, to give the famous response, no, I never tell a lie, which, of course, in itself has to be a lie. And then I believe in the Star Trek episode we have in which that occurs, we have the robot's head exploding.
Yes.
I notice yours hasn't as yet, but I'm just
Not
waiting.
yet,
I'm just
because,
waiting.
of course, I've never told a lie.
Yeah, yes, it's interesting, isn't it, about lying? Yes, we all lie, and yet, in general, we believe it to be wrong.
Yes.
So, what is it?
It's not a good thing.
In general, I say in general, because there are some lies that people think are necessary or just like to continue, sort of like a social contract. You know, a white lie, a lesser lie. I guess we're not really talking about that this episode, we're talking about bigger lies. But if we talk about why do we lie at all, sometimes it's simply because that's the way we get through life without coming to blows all the time.
Yes. Well, interestingly enough, people have done a lot of studies on this and about the psychologies about men and women and why do they lie. In fact, studies which have been conducted really sort of try to get to the deep root of why people do it. Some studies have said that, ironically, about people lying about 6 times a day on average. And why is that? Men seem to be more guilty than women. Don't know why that is, but there must be a reason. So I wonder. Now, of course, obviously there are implications to this. And of course, when we think of trying to sort of be honest, and we all talk about integrity and the values that we have in society,
yes.
Surely we must uphold all of these. But of course, what is the consequence of lying? Surely we can't go unpunished. Now, here's a little poem just to set some thoughts to the general public. So this is a poem called A Sorry End. Fork-tongued Freddy frequently lied, which many fine folk could not abide. For every deal done that was falsified, his reputation spread far and wide. Each complaint that he cast aside left many a folk totally mystified. As his lying schemes quickly diversified, the issues grew grim and magnified. One day Freddy appeared quite horrified, and he encountered customers all steely-eyed. Those honest victims who felt unsatisfied, their angst surfaced and intensified. Freddy bit his tongue and was mortified, and then made to swallow all of his pride. Alas, the humble pie got stuck deep inside, with the bitter truth he had denied. It wriggled and wiggled, then solidified, as Freddy moved from side to side. The surging pain rapidly amplified, and the agony hurt until he cried. The moral here we can now confide. A simple sorry made Freddy too terrified. But no matter how hard he really tried, on his words he choked and sadly died.
Yes, don't joke on your own words. Otherwise you have to eat your own hat. Yes, it's, the thing is that lying is bad for you in the long run. I suppose that's the main problem with it, in that if you lie, you end up having to keep lying in order to cover up the lie, and therefore you make problems for yourself in the future, and it snowballs, it gets out of control. if you take what the Bible says about lying, it's you might be surprised to hear it's actually against it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What a surprise.
Yeah, and it mentions it lots of times. Lying and things like not bearing false witness in court and being an honest witness, saying the opposite of that, and talking about deceit and the deceiver, being the Satan, being the one who deceives, also known as the devil. So obviously lying and deceit and dishonesty are cast as being really seriously wrong things to do. And just to take one, it says in Proverbs 14 verse 5, an honest witness does not deceive, but a false witness pours out lies. So what it does is it contrasts there the two different types of people, one that you want to have and then one that just constantly lies. It's just saying we need people who are honest witnesses. And God's reaction to that is to hate the lying. Proverbs 12 verse 22, the Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in the people who are trustworthy. This honest witness is someone that he delights in. So taking it from the Bible, we need to tell the truth, and it's important that we're continuous in that, because as soon as you start lying, you end up going down that path. That's these are in the Bible. We're saying liars and non-liars are the two different types of people. Although all people lie, if you're trying not to lie, then you're heading in the right direction. I heard this story the other day of someone went into a shop, and the person serving the shop was talking to a customer, and the manager was in the background, and they were talking, but the manager came in the middle of the conversation, and he heard the person serving the shop say to the customer, "Well, no, we haven't had any for a while. You know, it doesn't look like we'll be getting any soon." And the manager took the customer to one side. No, of course, we'll have some soon. Don't worry, we placed in an order last week. And before the customer had gone, even the manager talked to the person serving the shop and said, "Never say we're out of anything. Say we've got it on order. Now, what was it you wanted?" And he said, "Rain." We were talking about rain.
Yes. Well,
it's pleased to know he's got some order. You see, lying, you get caught out. If you're in the habit
indeed
of telling the truth, even though you might occasionally lie, then that's what you'll be known for telling the truth, and it'll make it easier for yourself.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting that many politicians are accused of lying, and of course this can happen on various levels, and it's not just confined to one part of the world. It seems that one of the reasons why people lie is, of course, to try and get one's own way, because it's a route to success.
Yes.
But ironically, there's no actually foolproof way of actually determining somebody who's telling a lie. So take my fork-tongued Freddie. I mean, how could you actually really distinguish whether he was telling a lie when doing a deal in business, for example? Well, some psychologists believe it's the avoidance of eye contact. If you don't get that eye contact, well, it's almost certainly that he's looking a little bit devious, and possibly he's trying to hide something. There is, of course, the other technique of change of voice. So, for example, if the pitch varies too much or wavers with too many ums and ahs. Did I catch you umming and ahhing this show? I'm not sure. I'll go back and listen. And of course, the other one is body language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, now, if your body language is trying to, say, cover your face or mouth, or perhaps if you're fidgeting, you look a little bit uneasy there, Pete. I wonder why. Or maybe you are contradicting yourself. You know, when many analysts and experts try to interview culprits who have been lying, what they do is they take statements. Now, this is very common, of course, for the police and many people in authorities. And, of course, what they do is they ask you the same question several times. And, of course, if you're consistent, the chances are that you're probably telling the truth. If you're not, it raises great suspicion. So I suppose the question is that why do certain people lie knowing that their whole world is scrutinized? Now, particularly politicians.
Mm.
I mean, they're filmed, they're documented. I mean, of course, notably, well, there were some famous ones, of course, Richard Nixon, who was impeached.
Mm.
Basically, a lot of his demise was based upon recordings that were made, as we now all know, and of course statements that were made which basically contradicted themselves. Of course, there are other ones that we've seen, like Bill Clinton, with his affair, and he potentially, as it was determined at the time, purged himself over his affair with Monica Lewinsky. So, there are many politicians who have actually taken this route, and you do wonder why they decide to lie.
Yes. Well, sometimes it's out of desperation, and that it's a cover-up operation. But often it doesn't seem to be that. It seems to be a strategy, a method of operating. And if you have an opponent in politics and they're squeaky clean, you can't find anything to pull them down, well, there's another opportunity. There's something else you can do. Just lie and make something up about them. And if people believe you, then you might win the election. So lying does have its benefits. Of course it does, otherwise people wouldn't do it. Lying can achieve results that telling the truth doesn't. But in the long run, it ends up with you being a person lacking in integrity. And so in the long run, it's bad for you, usually. Of course, people do get away with lying, and some for whole careers. So we can't say necessarily that just because of its outcome you shouldn't lie, in that it ends up bad for you. I think rather we need to say that you don't lie because it's wrong.
Well, I mean, I wonder where this all comes from. I mean, is it actually something that's ingrained in us when we're actually growing up, as in at a very young age? It's not just simply when you see that the stakes are raised when you go into business and there's money involved or there's materialistic things that you can gain. Because when you're a child, you're growing up, you're learning all the time. But why is it that we learn to tell a lie? Is it because we recognize that actually we can get our way, that maybe, as you've indicated, that possibly we could ward off our competition in some ways? What is it that in our society says that we are have a route which enables us to succeed? Not necessarily that it's a right one. Is it possibly that we're just not teaching the right values? So is it that maybe that the Bible isn't being taught enough in schools? Is that one thing? I certainly know when I was at school that it was certainly impressed upon you that you shouldn't lie and you should adhere to the commandments and all that is taught in the Bible. And so anyone who was actually caught lying, it was seen as quite a bit of an exposure to your character, and it was quite embarrassing if you were actually accused of lying. Today, it seems like, well, maybe it's almost sort of commonplace. We've seen bankers lying. We've seen politicians lying. We've even seen celebrities lie about their affairs, etc. Why do we see more people doing it, particularly at a young age?
Well, at a young age, I would take issue with part of what you said. And I agree with the growing acceptance of lying. That does seem something that chimes in with my own observations, but I think that we start by lying, and we need to be taught not to. For example, even a small child, if you catch them doing something wrong, and they're capable of speaking, and even before that, they will try and give the impression that they hadn't done it. Did you wet your nappy? Was that you who did that? No. Well, was it someone else? Did someone creep and do a wee in your nappy? I've heard myself say to my children, children from an early age know how to lie. But yes, then the training is, or should be, then not to lie. And when that isn't stuck to, or I guess this is the problem, when adults are shown themselves to lie, they lead by example.
Yes.
And that means that what people learn by the example of adults is that lying in certain circumstances is perfectly okay and it's expected. And that's where we get a problem. This is where we need to be people of integrity. It works for us long term, usually, say in a business sense or political sense, and it works for people who are following us or need us to set an example, like a parent to children or a teacher to students. And so we need to be people of integrity. We need to do it for our good and for the good of others. But you still have to recognize that sometimes lying will be better for you, and yet you still mustn't do it. That's the issue is, in the end, is it right or wrong?
Well, that's right. I mean, what we've seen also in society is that people make entertainment out of lying. I mean, a good example is we've seen the well-known film Liar, Liar, which starred Jim Carrey, where this was a man who basically gained success out of just simply lying his way through his whole career to get his way. But of course, ultimately, his comeuppance was such that his little son pleaded that he would actually not tell lies anymore. And of course, the story unfolds. For those who have not seen the film, we won't give the ending. But the fact is that we've also seen in places like Britain, for example, where we've had programs which actually totally are based on the idea of lying. So, for example, there's a well-known series called Would I Lie to You? The panel program is quite simply to bluff your way through a series of statements about things that are true and not true, and you have to determine who's telling a lie. So we're actually making entertainment out of the concept of lying. Surely that can't be a good thing.
Well, I think that we've become inured to it, that we expect people to lie, so we don't see anything wrong with people being lauded for fabricating stories. I think in that particular show, Would I Lie to You, when the person who wins at the end is praised for being the best liar, there is a sense of irony to it. I mean, it's done deliberately. However, that in itself is a lie, is it not?
Yes. Well,
because I'm praising you, but I'm not really. It's deceptive.
Well, yes. Well, look, listeners, we welcome your thoughts on this matter, and we want your honest opinion about what you think about telling lies. Have you ever told a lie to get your way to success, whether it's in your career or maybe you've told a little white lie, possibly to a loved one about something? Before we go, I would obviously just like to thank Pete for all his contributions, and I would say that, of course, I do think, Pete, that your pink frilly dress looks lovely on you today.
Yes, so, thank you. Yes,
you're welcome. So, listeners,
and we always tell the truth here on Mark and Pete.
Always tell the truth. Yes. So, listeners, let us know your thoughts. Join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete. Honestly.